Welcome back to When Harry Met Board Games, where we feed our people with relatable content and our victory condition is your satisfaction. I'm Harry, and today we have another playthrough and review. Today I'm going to be playing through and reviewing this game right here, Book of Skulls, Slayers of Argoth. Full disclaimer, this is a paid playthrough and review. For more information on the game, check in the description box down below for details and a link. Another disclaimer, this game is a prototype, so this is not finalized production, so keep that in mind. And this is basically what Book of Skulls looks like set up. You got a bunch of cards. Again, this is a prototype copy of the game, so keep that in mind. This is just to give you an idea of what the components consist of. And we have this board here, which makes up the map. Now, Book of Skulls, Slayers of Argoth is basically a hybrid of an RPG, a tabletop role-playing game, and a board game, and it's tailored to fans of heavy metal music. As a matter of fact, I believe the game is coming with an original soundtrack with original heavy metal music to add to the ambiance of the game. Now, Book of Skulls is basically a team versus team game in essence. You get a group of players to control one team and another group of players to control the other team. And basically, players are taking turns being the DM, the dungeon master, or the game master, or one team is taking turns, while the other team is basically the heroes, in this game referred to as the Slayers. So no matter how many players you play, although this game is believed to be optimal at a 2 versus 2 count, no matter how many players you play, each side is going to control 4 Slayers, that is 4 hero characters. So even if you have fewer than 4 players on your team, you're still going to control 4 characters. Now, the opposing team is going to take turns. They're going to alternate controlling the demons, and the demons are basically the bad guys. They're the monsters. They're the bosses you're going to have to deal with and encounter throughout the course of the game. Now, before the game begins, players are going to separate all of these cards out. And right here, you have the different demons and the bosses, which are their own separate card here. And they are separated by level. You have different levels of bad guys that you're going to be dealing with. And they're also set apart alphabetically. That way they're easy to find and easy to locate, because on certain encounters, you have specific bosses, specific monsters that you'll be encountering, while on others, they will be determined randomly. For example, an overworld encounter, those are usually dealt out randomly, but at a particular location, such as a dungeon or a ruin or a stronghold, then you have specific encounters that are already predetermined for you, and by alphabetizing it, it makes it easy for players to locate. So each team is going to take turns choosing their 4 Slayer characters. And each of the characters here are asymmetric. They give you different abilities. And the game comes with tons of characters for players to choose from. And again, each of these characters are very different from one another. So let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the card here. First of all, we have Winter here. And underneath here, we have this Guardian card. That's another thing that players are going to be randomly dealt. They can choose their characters, but they'll be randomly dealt a Guardian. And the Guardian card will be placed underneath your Slayer card, your hero. And it will not be available until they are unlocked, and I'll explain more about that later on. But let's talk a little bit about the anatomy here. We have the rage bar over here, and little by little, players, as they successfully activate their actions, they are going to progress on the rage bar here. And when the rage bar is here at its fullest level, it will grant players a one-time discount in order to trigger a particular action at a smaller level here. So these here are referred to as the power art of the character. And usually the power art, here in this case, Winterhorn, you have to roll 8 or higher on a d12 dice in order to deal 1 damage, or in order to deal damage to the demon, and immediately add 1 demon coin, which is basically a currency in this game, to the Slayer's total. In order to basically purchase these demon cards for overworld encounters, players are going to have to use a currency referred to as demon coins, and they have exponential ascending value depending on which level. So the higher the level, the more expensive it's going to cost to get them in there. But obviously, these are more powerful as they ascend in level. So in order to trigger this this power art here, you're going to need to roll an 8 or higher on the D12. However, if you choose to spend your rage bar here and reduce it all the way back, then you'll be able to reduce this amount by 2. So instead, you will only need a 6 or higher to activate this power art over here. So right here, we have the battle art, which is basically the regular actions that players can take. And here we have Winter's Fury, attack one demon twice as opposed to just once. You roll a d6. If it's a 1, it's a miss. If it's a 2 to 4, it's a 30 damage. And if it's a 5 to 6, it's 40 damage. And here basically it illustrates the potential. It could be a 0, a 30, or 40, and you can do this 2 times. Now right here on the upper left-hand corner, we find the amount of hit points that this character has. So Winter can sustain 500 hit points, and players can use these character sheets to keep track of different things such as the hit points of their characters. They could also keep track of their other currencies, demon coins, gold, any inventory that they accrue or acquire throughout the course of the game. As I mentioned, this is very much in the vein of tabletop role-playing games, RPGs. So we got the regular battle art and power art. I mentioned the rage bar. I mentioned the hit points, the life. And over here, we have the different, the elemental art here, which basically tells you how effective they are with certain elements, how vulnerable they are with certain elements when they're rolled on the 6-sided element die here. Again, this is a prototype of what the game would look like. And basically it tells you the element that is associated with this character. So Winter, very appropriately, is associated with some type of frost element. And where here we have Yannick here, and we have Sharon here, and we have Nekfia here. And they each have a different elemental that they are associated with. But if you see here, it tells you the amount of damage that a player can deal depending on what they roll on the elemental die. So this character here, very powerful. If they roll here, the 100 for the fire. However, these different elements here, they're actually vulnerable to. Instead of adding the 100 to their attack as they would if they rolled this, they would actually subtract, or actually, I'm sorry, they would deal 10 damage to themselves if they rolled the side of the die that corresponds with that element. Or worse yet, if they rolled the earth, the green over here, they would actually take 50 damage to their character. So remember, when you see a negative, that means that instead of adding it as a modifier to your attack against a demon, against an opponent, instead you're actually going to sustain that damage yourself as a character. And then we have on the bottom here some very specific powers that are only triggered in particular situations. So for example here, Night Vision. Winter deals plus 20 damage while he is battling in caves. So it particularly has to be in a cave. And we have here Demon Magnet. Winterhorn will gain 2 demon coins instead of 1. So that's pretty much it as far as the anatomy of the cards is concerned. So before the game, teams are going to decide which team will go first. One team is going to control the white pawn. The other team is going to control the black pawn. And these pawns basically represent the entire party traversing through the lands here across the board, ultimately trying to make it to the final destination in this particular campaign, in this particular scenario, if you will. And basically players are going to roll the die to determine who goes first, who will represent their slayers first, and who will represent the demon players first. And also they're going to roll the die to see where they start off in, and based on a roll, it will determine one of 3 potential starting spaces. The players are working their way from the left all the way across to the right. And basically no 2 teams can start in the same location. So for the purposes of this video, I got the white team here on the bottom and the black team here all the way on the top. Now, after players determine which side is going to take the role of the slayers first and which side is going to take the role of the demons, then players are going to start to play. And basically, each team is going to alternate. They're going to get 2 consecutive turns before they swap places. They're still controlling the same characters, so it's not that one team controls the characters of the other team. Each team has their own unique band of heroes of 4 different slayers. So what happens is one team is controlling their 4 slayers while the other team is representing the DM, the dungeon master, the game master. And then they're going to swap after 2 turns. And then they're going to rinse, wash, and repeat. So the other team's going to get 2 turns as the slayers that they control, while the other team is going to control the demons, the bad guys. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the turn sequence. At the beginning of a turn, the Slayer team, they're going to draw 2 event cards. And you have 2 types of event cards. You have an encounter deck and an action deck. They're going to draw 1 of each type, exactly 1 of each type. And they're going to keep them face down for the time being, so they're not revealing them just yet. And each of these event cards correspond with the 2 turns that the Slayer team will take before alternating and taking over the other side, the demon side. So they're going to keep these 2 cards here face down for the time being. Then they're going to roll a 6-sided die, and this is the navigation roll. And basically, it's going to tell them how many spaces they can move. So in this case, we have 5 spaces. So we'll count 5 spaces and move the pawn over here that represents the party, the Slayers, 5 spaces. Now, if these players chose to go here, they would have to stop. This is a settlement, which is one of the many types of landmarks. We also have dungeons over here, and we have different strongholds, and lots of these different locations. They not only require the player to stop, but in some of these locations, for example, the dungeons and the strongholds, we would have particular encounters that players would have to look up on the manual in order to see what happens there, which particular bad guy they're going to be fighting. If you go to the settlement, there are particular actions that you can do in the settlement when you stop there. But regardless, you cannot just pass by these landmarks and continue moving. You are obligated to stop moving whenever you stop at a landmark. So even if you still have a few more moves left to go as far as your die roll is concerned, your navigation roll, you're still obligated to stop and interact with that particular settlement. Now, once players have had their roll, once they've done their navigation roll and moved their pawn along the spaces, then they can reveal one of their event cards. And again, they have 2 event cards, one corresponding with each of the 2 actions that they take, each of the 2 rounds that they take before they swap spaces with the other team. And they get to pick whichever one they want to flip over. So we're going to flip over the encounter card here, and it says Brutal Encounter. It says summon demons level 1 to 4, spend up to 12 demon coins, level 1, and it tells you basically the price. So as I mentioned earlier, they're exponentially more costly as they increase in levels, but there's always a maximum of 4 demons, 4 bad guys. You can never, no matter how much demon coins you have, you can never summon up more than that. So that's something that players are to keep in mind. Now, players do begin, or the teams do begin, with a certain starting amount of demon coins as their currency. So from the very get-go, they are able to afford some of these, bring them out, and have their opposing slayers encounter these. Now, we'll talk more about combat shortly, but after a player, or a team, I should say, resolves their action or their encounter in this case, then they go for their second of 2 consecutive turns. And again, they are rolling the navigation die. And this time we rolled another 5. They would move 5 spaces along the track here, and they would stop. And then after they're done with that, then they would reveal the other of the 2 action cards or event cards that they drew at the beginning of their turn or the beginning of their round. As I mentioned earlier, you can flip them over in whatever order of your choice. I decided to do the encounter first, and now we could do the action, but it could have easily been done the opposite way. And here we find a chest. And basically it says here, refer to chess mechanics. And you would go to the manual, and basically, the manual will determine how you interact with chess and what potential benefits and rewards you can get from that. And now that this team has done their 2 turns, which consists of drawing 2 event cards, 1 apiece from the encounter and action deck, setting them aside face down, rolling the navigation die, moving their pawn the corresponding amount of spaces, revealing one of the action cards, and then repeating that process twice in a row. Once they are done with that, they're going to swap spaces with the other team. So now this is still, the white pawn still represents Team A's Slayers. However, now Team A is going to take over the demons, the bad guys, and the other player, Team B, is going to now control their Slayers, and they're going to do the same thing, trying to move throughout this board here from left to right. And one of the responsibilities of the demon team is that while they're controlling that side of the game, they're the ones who are going to be responsible for referring to the rules, for referring to the manual, very much like a game master or a dungeon master in a tabletop role-playing game. Now we're going to talk a little bit about combat, which quite often is people's favorite part of these type of games. And basically, as I mentioned earlier, when you stop at particular locations, particular landmarks like dungeons in particular, and strongholds and such, you're going to refer to the game rules, the manual, in order to see which particular demon or boss you're going to be encountering. And again, they're set aside alphabetically for easy navigation of this, and that's who you're gonna fight. However, if you have an overworld encounter, which quite often happens as a result of these encounter cards, then the players who are controlling the demon can spend their currency, referred to again as demon coins, to pay for these demons. And it's all about how much money they have. And again, level 1s cost 1, level 2s cost 2 demon coins apiece, level 3s cost 4, and level 4s cost 10 demon coins apiece. And it's all about how much money they have. They can never exceed more than 4 demons fighting the Slayers at a time. So at worst case scenario, they're at least going to match up evenly 4-4. Now, once both sides have all of their characters ready, that is the demons ready and the different Slayers ready for the combat, then the teams are going to roll to see who's the aggressor. And that's basically a roll for initiative. Whoever wins this roll will go first in the attacking sequence, and basically all of their characters are going to activate in succession before the other team gets a chance to respond. And this little back and forth sequence is going to go on and on until one side has all of their characters completely eliminated. Early on, it's more likely to be the demons, but as the game progresses and the Slayers get weaker, it's possible that they will get picked off little by little and ultimately maybe even be defeated. So we will determine who is the aggressor, and then after that is determined, that side that won the aggressor role is going to go in order from where they lined up their characters from left to right. So even that is particular and important and part of the strategy, perhaps as you see how your different characters interact with one another. Then it's probably better to be very thoughtful about how you order them in left and right. And you're going to fully activate and trigger each character and their attacks and actions, their arts, as the game refers to it, before you move on to the next character to the right, and then after that, and then after that. Now, before every round of combat, each Slayer is going to roll this spirit dice, and depending on what they roll, they are going to try to cover up these different icons on top of their Guardian card. So we have this Guardian card, which is covered by the Slayer card to indicate that this Guardian is still locked and not available to the players. But if I would have rolled an icon corresponding with one of these, I would have been able to place one of these chips on top of it to cover it. And remember, these are all prototypes, so there will be more thematic and better looking pieces in finalized production. But I did not roll an icon that this Guardian has, so I will not be able to cover up any of these spaces. But ideally, what you're trying to do is little by little cover up all of these different icons here. And once you do that, then the Guardian is immediately unlocked and available to you. And now you fight with the Guardian. And the Guardian has much stronger abilities as far as their attacks are concerned. So they will be able to deal much more damage. So ideally, you do want to get these Guardians unlocked as quickly as possible. But as you can see, there's lots of icons, and you're not always going to roll an icon that your Guardian has there. So after rolling the Spirit die and seeing whether or not you can cover up an additional space here on the Spirit track here on your Guardian card, then players will decide which actions they want to activate. They can activate their Battle Art, which whenever they do so, they'll be able to advance on their Rage Bar, which little by little will progress all the way over here. And as I mentioned, in the future, they can use this to activate their Power Art, which is this special one right here. And for this Power Art, if you ever choose to use it, you're going to roll a d12, and on a roll of an 8 or higher, you will successfully trigger the action specified here. However, regardless of where your Rage Bar is, you'll have to reduce it all the way back to the beginning. But if your Rage Bar is full, you'll be able to use it for a discount to lower the number that you're targeting, this 8+, by 2, in order to successfully activate his power. Now, these power arts that have this diamond symbol here, they're referred to as Slayer Strikes. And basically, they grant the Slayer the opportunity on the roll of a 12, that's the maximum amount on a d12. If they roll a 12, they will trigger the Slayer Strike, which gives them the opportunity to attempt the Power Art a second time. So potentially, they might be able to successfully implement their Power Art 2 turns in a row. Once this player is chosen among their Battle Art, their Power Art, and their Elemental Art, then they are done. They will move on to the next player, who will do the same thing. They will roll their Spirit die, see if they rolled a symbol that's located, and in this case, we do have a symbol here that's located on their Guardian card. Again, the goal is to little by little cover these all up, eventually unlocking the Guardian and all of his or her abilities to the Slayer. And then they again will choose which action they want to do. And we'll be keeping track with the different character sheets of how many hit points each Slayer has, or each particular demon in the particular encounter has. And we'll keep on doing this until all of the Slayers have gone. Then play will proceed to the players controlling the demons, and they'll go through all their characters. And again, we'll alternate sides until one side has all of their characters defeated. Now, after the encounter has been resolved and the Slayers have come out victorious, if that's the case, they're going to roll a d6 and determine how much gold they're going to get. Gold is a hot commodity in this game. And they're going to roll a d6 yet again to determine how much demon coins they're going to get, which again is a currency that they're going to use in order to activate bad guys on overworld encounters against their opponents, the other team. And there's other rewards that players can gain as a result of defeating demons successfully so. And that's pretty much it as far as battle. After that, players will resume their turns based on their round. They're going to continue alternating until finally a player will make it to the final location in this particular campaign. And whoever successfully encounters that final boss will be the winner of the game. Now, if for whatever reason a team has all of their Slayers completely eliminated, then that too will cause the surviving team to be declared the victors. And that's pretty much it. As far as Book of Skulls, this was definitely an overview of the game. This definitely did not go too much into detail. This is a very thorough game, thick rule book, lots to keep in mind. Very much, as I mentioned, a role-playing game in spirit. Lots of cool little things as far as gameplay is concerned, the different characters and all that you have to factor in. I find that to be interesting for players who do not mind lots of upkeep and lots of things to keep track of. The fact that 2 players are going to alternate, basically being the dungeon master or the game master and being the heroes, I think that's cool because it gives a larger group of people the opportunity to play this type of game and experience both sides of the table, so to speak. The variety as far as all the different bad guys and all the different good guys as well is really cool, really off the charts. Lots of cool things. I'm really excited to see what the finalized production will look like as far as the components are concerned. But if you like tabletop role-playing games and you like fantasy-themed board games, and if you like heavy metal, then this is definitely a game you have to look into. And even if you don't like heavy metal, the gameplay itself is more than enough. If you like tabletop role-playing games and want to consider a new one with a board game feel to it, definitely check this one out. Again, there's going to be more information in the description box down below. Thank you so much for joining us here at When Harry Met Board Games. This is Harry saying take care, everybody. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun gaming. Bye-bye.